Hi, 7th graders, and welcome to Monday, January 11th. And I hope you guys had a wonderful break and enjoyed the extra time that you had off. If you have created any MLK limericks or essays or anything for MLK Day, make sure to bring that in on Wednesday. You do not have to scan it and send it to me. Just bring it on Wednesday. We can talk more about that too if you want to still create some poems or essays. We can talk about that. But for right now, let's deal with transitive verbs, and you need to turn to page 190, and this is lesson 41. And we have briefly talked about this. You talked about it last year in 6th grade. And transitive verbs, are my favorites. I do not like boring verbs, and so in the IEW methodology, we always want those quality adjectives and strong verbs to really describe what's going on in our writing. So let's actually talk about what they are, and then I really want you to be thinking of a lot of good transitive verbs for your writing. So if you look in the gray box, I have just reproduced this, and so let's make sure that we understand all of that. So a transitive verb passes its action to a noun or a pronoun in the sentence. And if you think about trans, like if you think about transportation, transcommunication, it means putting something across. Something is moving across. A transitive verb is passing its action to a noun or pronoun in the sentence. A transitive verb usually passes its action to a direct object. And we're going to see that mom baked dad a cake example come up here in a second and take a look at that. A transitive verb with a direct object may also have an indirect object, and a lot of times it does. A transitive verb may pass its action back to the subject, and we will actually take a look at that. More definitions. So this is the Mrs. Jernigan definition. And I always tell people transitive verbs, the verbs that where you can see the action in your head. So if I said, Mom is in the kitchen, you can't really see any action. You might assume that she is baking a cake for Dad, but you don't know for sure. Is, was, were, has, had, all of those I call really boring verbs. Of course, they have other names too. But I like the action words. I like the transitive. And so if I said Mom baked Dad a cake in the kitchen, you can actually see her working and baking. So transitive verbs are the ones that you see the action in your head. The others, you really can't see the action in your head. Now, one of the things that's said in the gray box is that many times there will be a direct object with transitive verbs. So, I could say Mom baked Dad a cake. I could say Joan knitted a sweater for Dad. And in those cases, if I can answer the question, Joan did what? Well, she knitted a sweater. There is a direct object there. So get into the habit of asking that question. Ask who or what to determine if there is a direct object. Now let's remember how we diagram all of this. God led Abraham and Sarah into the desert, perhaps, or into the promised land. There might be a number of things that could be on the end of this sentence. So God is our subject. What did he do? He led. He led who or what? Abraham and Sarah. So here's the diagram. We have a double direct object, and so we get to put it on the pitchfork or the regular fork or whatever you call it at this point. So there is your subject, your transitive verb, because we can actually see that action happening. Let's take a look at another one. Now sometimes you will have compound verbs and a compound direct object that goes with them. So Lot chose the plains and pitched his tent. And in that case, and I'm not actually sure if I'm quoting that sentence correctly, but Lot chose what? Chose the plains. Lot pitched what? Pitched his tent. So even though there are two verbs, there are two different direct objects, and sometimes they can be the same, but sometimes they're different. So you just need to be very careful when you are doing that. Now, one other thing that we can talk about is that you can change who receives the action by adding a helping verb or a to be verb. And this is what is called passive writing. So for example, if I am active writing, I'm going to say Mom baked Dad a cake. And you know that cake is the direct object. However, I can change the sentence around and I can say the cake was being baked by Mom. That's called passive writing. It uses a helping verb, to be verb. And we still have this baked going on, but by adding these to be verbs in here, I'm suddenly shifting the action back to the cake. So there's two different ways you can write. You can write that active Mom baked Dad a cake. You can also say the cake was being baked by Mom, and that actually shifts who is getting the action. The cake is getting the action. So just be careful as you are looking at your homework, just to make sure that you know which scenario you have. Do you have the passive writing or do you have the active writing? Because that's going to change how the action is happening. Okay, and then one last thing, I want to show you how to, I know that we've talked about indirect objects, but I'm not sure that I've shown you in class, so I wanted to make sure the book does point this out. Father gave somebody the list of boys, or gave the boys a list. That's what the sentence should be. Father gave the boys the list. Father, subject, what did he do? He gave. What did he give? The list. But the boys are who received it. And so your indirect object is who is receiving. The girls made father and mother a gift. And so the girls made what? Girls made gift. But who did they make it for? And so this is actually a compound indirect object. So make sure your pitchfork comes out. And mother prepared the family a meal. Mother prepared what? Mother prepared meal, but she prepared for the family. There's your indirect object. So now that you know how to do the indirect object, make sure that you are diagramming it. It's pretty easy. It's just going to go under the verb, and it is going to look like a prepositional phrase, where it's got the slant coming down. So just be careful of that. All right. Let's do, all of this is in your book, and so I want you to make sure that you look at the examples of everything that we've talked about as you are going through your homework. Now let's do, I want to do class practice A, and it says read each verb and tell which word receives the action of the main verb. So this is that difference of, is there a to be verb included in there? So we have to look for those. Is, are, was, were, all of those. If you see one of those, it's probably going to throw you a little bit. So we're going to look at class practice A. I want you to take a few minutes to stop the video, fill out class practice A, write it down on your paper, and on Wednesday, when we're together in school, you will actually be receiving, I finally got my act together, created your coupons, and I've stapled those to all those papers that you had given me. Those are coming back to you. And so this will be another one of those scenarios. There will be some sort of prize, coupon, candy, something for you doing these class practice and bringing them into school. So go ahead and do class practice A. And that's all I'm going to have you do is the 8 questions in class practice A. Then come back and I will give you the answers to those and you can check them. Okay, if you are back, we are going to go over the class practice A. So these houses were built by Brother Alvin's carpenter crew. So we have were built. There comes that little to be verb in there, which is going to shift the action back to the subject. So houses is the subject. That's what's getting the action. So if you weren't quite sure what I was talking about before, hopefully these will clear it up. The masons carefully laid the blocks. Well, laid is the verb. Laid what? Blocks. There's the direct object. That's what's getting the action. Number 3, the intermediate class was taught by Brother Wilbur. There's that was. Anytime you see was, were, be, being, been, any of those pop in, you know you're probably going to have passive here. And so the subject is was taught. And in this situation, class, the subject, is what is getting the action. Number 4, the cat was chased up the tree by Shep. Was chased. There we have that helping verb. And so the cat, the subject, is what is getting the action. The trucks have dumped gravel in the driveway. Have dumped. Gravel is the direct object. Now, even though have popped in, it still has the direct object because you can still answer the what question. So you just have to be careful, really examine the sentences. The Lord has revealed his will to us. Has revealed, again, we've got the has in there, but we can answer the what question. Has revealed what? Will. And so the direct object is what is getting the action. Because of the heavy snowstorm, the service has been canceled. Has been canceled is your verb, and service, the subject, is actually what is getting the action. They snuck the word been in there. And so that means the subject's going to get the action. The Bible shows us the path of life. Shows and path is the direct object, and that is what is getting the action. So hopefully that helped you to understand what I'm looking for in the homework. If you have any problems or questions with the homework, let me know, or raise your hand in class on Wednesday, and we can certainly go over it. And I will plan to see you Wednesday.